Hey everybody, Dr. Dan here, and I just want to take a minute and talk about this supplemental reading that we're going to have for this module. And it's a chapter from a book written by a couple of folks from Ann Arbor, actually, and it's called The Asian Connection. So we're reading this because I like the history of technology, and I think it's kind of important because all we've been reading in our text is really about religion. And we've been reading about the Greek influence and the Roman influence, which is important, but we're so Western-centric, we tend to forget that a lot of innovations for society in general, and especially for technology, did not come from the West. So I think it's important that we plug, this Asian idea and Indian idea into Western Civ, so we get a well-rounded picture of what was going on at the time. So, in the reading that you're going to do, the chapter that I posted, one of the assertions is that it's the most important borrowed technology, or the most important source of technology for the West, Western Europe in the medieval period, is from China. So I want you to be aware of that, because I think, for me, the Silk Road is like 4,000 miles long, running from China into Europe. And to think about this idea that there was actually trading going on before Christ is fascinating. So, silk from China was well known amongst the Romans, and that technology all came from Asia, from China specifically. So this idea of technology transfer that you'll read about on page 85, that goes on today, started way back when, so 2,000 years ago plus. So I think that's interesting in itself. It gives you an idea that trade it was sophisticated, and technology was sophisticated at that time. It's not just us or modern times, or certainly the West or the U.S. that invented all the cool stuff. A lot of it, you could argue most of it, came from China. So the chapter talks about these large-scale technology projects in China and how that requires organization and usually government sponsorship. So think in terms of the Great Wall of China, think in terms of these major power projects like water wheels that were being built in China. Now, that's not to say it never happened in the West. Obviously, the pyramids were built. Obviously, Rome was built, and that took government sponsorship and the organization of workers, and was sophisticated. But again, I just don't want to discount the Asian connection. We should keep an open mind and a clearer view of what was going on at the time. So cast iron was a really important Chinese technology. Again, the West had it earlier than China by everyone's accounts, but China went into broad-scale production sooner than the West, and really sort of specialized the manufacturing of cast iron. So this is around 700 AD, right around in there, and also the invention of the clock and sophisticated timekeeping mechanisms. I think on page 89, it talks about the timekeeping mechanisms and how sophisticated they were, the movements of the clock, if you will. So it's another thing of great interest. You'll read about the origins of gunpowder. So I think most of us know that gunpowder was invented in the East, in Asia, but you'll read about that in this reading, and it's speculated, and it has been for a long time, that the idea of gunpowder, the invention, was transmitted from East to West. There's really been no concrete discovery of when exactly that happened, but that's what the thinking is behind it. So the Chinese had pretty sophisticated weapons and rockets, way back before Europe did, based on gunpowder. So again, innovation that you should be aware of. The other thing in the book, it talks about the origins of paper. So when you think about movable type, we always think of Gutenberg, who's European, and we haven't read about him yet. And certainly his invention was the invention of movable type, but the Chinese invented printing and had paper, and so they were sophisticated and ahead of their time there. It also talks about toilet paper in this chapter, which is pretty interesting and kind of fun. So that's something you can read about. And the other stuff I think of interest is the near the end of the chapter, he gets into, or the authors get into, the contributions from Arab culture. And again, if you're not familiar with the mathematicians and the astronomers of Arab culture, you'll learn about them in this reading. Certainly banking, bookkeeping, because of the Arab merchant class, were more sophisticated than anything in the West. And a lot of the roots of English bookkeeping come from Arab bookkeepers that were hired, in around 1000 at the time of William the Conqueror in England to keep track of things. So there's a definite provenance of skills and innovation there. That's about all I wanted you to take out of this. Just this idea that, don't be so Western centric that we think that everything was invented in the West, because that certainly wasn't the case. And it's also just kind of a fun reading. So that's it for the Asian Connection. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great day. Be careful. Bye-bye.